We are now working on the topic of rocks and the rock cycle. So you will have done some of these questions already, and I'll go through the answers to those. So if this is the Earth, the outer layer shown here is known as the crust. All right, that's quite thin and rocky, and that's where we live. We live on top of the crust. Then this next layer here is called the mantle. All right, which is a very strange place because it has the properties of a solid, but can flow very slowly. Okay, so we can think a bit more about that later. And then the inside here, this is the core of the Earth, but it's in two parts. And we have the outer core and the inner core. Now, the outer core is liquid and the inner core is solid. All right, and that's because the pressure inside the inner core is really, really high. So even though it's really, really, really hot in the inner core, because the pressure is so high, it's solid. Okay, so you would have read all of this here, and then you would have answered these questions here. So which is the thinnest layer? That's the crust on the outside. Okay, so the crust is really thin, but it's thin compared to the other layers. It's still quite thick, you know, it's miles and miles and miles, but compared to the other layers, it's quite thin. Which part is the thickest? Well, that is going to be the mantle, which you would have read about. Which part is the solid bit that we stand on? That's the crust. What state is the mantle? Well, the state of the mantle is, like I just said, it's this strange sort of solid, but it flows slowly, so it's kind of like liquid. It's a semi-rock. Okay, so we could say it's solid and it's liquid. Okay, it's a bit of a strange one, but it's sort of in between the two. All right, why is the core liquid even though it is made of iron? Okay, so remember the outer core, this part here is liquid. So the inner core is solid, the outer core is liquid, even though it's made of metal. And that's because the temperature is really, really high. Okay, high temperature. Okay, so we would have had this picture here of how the plates move, and we'll do a bit more on this next year, but it's essentially because, remember I said that this is able to flow, so this is always moving around, okay, and because of that it's able to move the plates apart. All right, what does the fact that earthquakes and volcanoes occur at the boundaries tell us about the plates? So we should have seen that here we say they are moving very slowly, but they are moving, and every now and again a buildup of pressure is released in the form of a sudden slip of the plates or an explosion of lava. All right, so what it tells us is the plates are moving. Okay, and you might have done a bit about this in geography. If you haven't, you will do. All right, but as they move, lava is able to come out of the gap. Which is the hottest part of the Earth? That's the inner core. So as you get closer to the center, the temperature goes up. Explain how the continents move. Okay, so we can see that convection currents inside the Earth move the plates apart. So convection currents move the plates. And explain how we have earthquakes and volcanoes. So earthquakes are caused by a sudden slip of the plates. And volcanoes are caused when lava is released through a gap in the plates. Okay, so now we have this sort of basic understanding of what the Earth looks like inside. We can move on to thinking about the different types of rock that we have. So the first type of rock that we're going to think about is igneous rock. Okay, now igneous rocks are formed from molten rock that is cooled and solidified. So it's going to come mainly from rocks from inside the mantle. All right. Now, there are two types of igneous rock. Okay. And those two types of igneous rock are from magma that cools slowly or lava that cools quickly. All right. Now, so what's the difference between magma and lava? Okay. So if we have the Earth here, and then there's a volcano on the Earth's surface, all right, and here, this is all of our magma here, and it's going to come out through the volcano, and it's going to flow down the sides of the volcano, all right. So, how it works is, when this molten rock is inside the Earth, here, it's called magma. But when it comes out of the volcano and it's above the Earth's surface, now it's called lava. So it's the same thing, but when it's inside the Earth, it's called magma. And when it's outside the Earth, it's called lava. Now, magma, okay, if you imagine, if you're a bit of magma and you're right down here, you're really hot and you're going to stay as a liquid. But if you're magma and you move over here towards the edge of this bit of magma, it's going to start to cool down a bit, and you're going to cool slowly, and you're going to form an igneous rock with large crystals. All right. But if you're magma and you get ejected out of the volcano and land on the Earth's surface as lava, you're going to cool down really, really quickly because the temperature is much, much lower. All right, because the temperature outside the Earth is much lower than inside the Earth. And you're going to cool quickly to form igneous rock with small crystals. All right. So another way of thinking about it is that we have the rock that forms from lava. So the rock that cools quickly is called extrusive. Okay. On the other hand, the one that forms from magma that cools slowly, that's called intrusive. And you can think of it as extrusive is external and intrusive is internal. Okay, so extrusive igneous rock is formed external to the Earth's surface. Intrusive igneous rock is formed internal to the Earth's surface. Okay, so let's answer some of these questions. What is convection? Remember, convection is that when the hot mantle rises, okay, so the hot mantle near the core rises, so it goes up like this, and then it cools and starts to come back down and goes back into the mantle. Okay, so it's that sort of circular motion going around. That's convection, and that's what's moving the plates. All right. Sometimes the pressure of the rising molten rock results in a sudden eruption. Molten rock is known as magma. If it is forced out of the volcano, it is known as lava. Describe the physical properties of igneous rock. So, we should have had that igneous rock is that depending on if they are intrusive or extrusive, so if they are intrusive, they are rocks that are formed inside the Earth's surface, so they have cooled very slowly, so they have large crystals. And if they are extrusive, they've formed outside the Earth's surface where it's colder, so they've formed very quickly, so they have small crystals. All right. And some examples of igneous rock we had back here. So we had things like obsidian, pumice, basalt, and granite. And you can look these up on the internet and you can see pictures of them, which is quite a good thing to do. And they're all generally quite hard rocks. All right, imagine something like marble. All right, it's going to be quite a hard rock. So, next, what are the three sections of the earth called? We have the crust, the mantle, and the core. Remember, the core is the inner core and the outer core. What happens in the mantle to move the tectonic plates? That's convection. Why do regions of hot liquids rise? So, regions of hot liquid will rise because the density has decreased. Okay. So you would have noticed when we were doing this reading here that the density in the core is really high, and in the mantle it's lower, and in the crust it's even lower. So as the density decreases, so it rises. Name two examples of igneous rock and list their characteristics. So you could have chosen any two from those four here. And label the diagram below. All right, so you would have extrusive igneous rock would be this rock being formed here. Intrusive igneous rock would be this rock formed here. And this molten stuff in here, that's your lava. That's your magma. And this is your lava up here.